Yeah, speaker there.
I don't know what you're doing. You made me sad.
Please turn off all cell phones. The agenda of the Pumpkin Lake Zoning Board of Adjustment, June 25th, 2024. The following is the agenda of the regular meeting of the Pumpkin Lake Zoning Board of Adjustment. This meeting is to be held in the municipal building, 25 Lenox Avenue, on Tuesday, June 25th, 2024, beginning at 8 o'clock p.m. A written advance notice as required by NJSA 10:4-1 et sec. has been provided of this meeting at least 48 hours in advance of today, given the time, date, and location, and to the extent known at the time, the agenda of the meeting. Such notice stated that formal action may or may not be taken. The meeting will be video recorded and be broadcast for later viewing for the public. The notice was posted on the bulletin board outside the office of the municipal clerk, reserved for this and similar announcements. Provided to the Suburban Trends, newspaper designated by the council and planning board to receive such notices and filed with the borough clerk. Please stand for the pledge of allegiance. Pledge allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Make it a roll call, please.
Yes. Mr. Hunt?
Here.
Mr. Abate?
Here.
Ms. Curran?
Here.
Mr. Koss,
Here.
Ms. Bernstock?
Here.
Mr. Rowan?
Here.
Mr. Begg is absent. Mr. Luciani?
Here.
Mr. Fagula?
Here.
Mr. Devontae?
Here.
Okay, we have Mayor Sarah, Bruce, Angie. Okay.
Good.
All good.
Okay, minutes of the regular meeting from May 28th, 2024. Everyone had an opportunity to read those minutes. Are there any corrections to those minutes? I see no one, so can I please get a motion to accept the minutes?
I'll make a motion, we accept the minutes.
Second.
Roll call.
Okay, Mr. Hunt?
Yes.
Mr. Abate?
Yes.
Ms. Curran?
Present.
Mr. Koss,
Present.
Ms. Bernstock?
Here. I mean, yes.
Mr. Rowan?
Here. Yes.
Mr. Luciani?
Yes.
Mr. Fagula?
Yes.
Mr. Devontae?
Yes. Okay, and a bunch of correspondence from the Borough of Oakland, Township of Wayne. Do you have any questions regarding those correspondence? No? Good. Okay, we're gonna move into applications. BOA 23-07 Pro Print Graphics. Would you please go up?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, Council, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Harold P. Cook III. I'm here on behalf of the applicant. This is a continued application. We have our engineer this evening, Mr. Weissman, to address some of the issues that have been unaddressed that were raised by the board's engineer. And so he is going to go through the latest report and but address those issues. He was sworn the last time he was here, so he's still under oath for this one.
Correct.
That's correct.
Mr. Weissman, you're still under oath.
Understood.
Okay, you want to refer to the report that you're going to address?
Yes, looking at the letter from Colliers Engineering dated May 23rd, 2024. I had the opportunity to go through, most of the items have been addressed on the latest plan that the board has in front of them. Just want to make sure we have the same date of the scroll on that to make sure. seen the plan that I'm referring to. Latest revision is number 4, dated 3/27/24. I guess it's the same one. So, I'll just go through item by item. Items we have, I guess number 1 is the completeness, so we were deemed complete. The number of variances have been listed on the plan. This is item number 2. Number 3 is the zoning table was revised as requested. Number 4, the item regarding existing and proposed impervious surface has been revised, as well as identification of lower site surface area, which is stone. Number 5, the impervious calculations have been revised from 327 plan, which is the one in front of you, as well as identification of the surface at the rear. Number 6 is related to the location of the regulatory floodway. We do show the floodway on the plan, and it's labeled on the lower right portion of the actual site plan itself. It's limited as a floodway, it's per FEMA channel. We'll leave off the number, but it's listed on the plan. A permit by rule is again number 6. A permit by rule is currently appropriate here. Is they do list, if the board is familiar with permits by rule, it's in the DEP flood hazard area regulations where certain activities and disturbances are permitted within the floodway. And what's listed on this plan does conform or does comply with the permits by rule, numbers 50 and 51, with the exception of the date of the applicability determination is after I believe it is the 2007, I think, had it pre-exist. That's the only item in that permit by rule that does not comply, but everything else does comply as far as the use and the storage of materials outside, et cetera. So we do comply with the permit by rule in that regard. The parking aisles in number 7 have been,
We just,
I'm sorry.
add real
Go ahead.
the permit rule.
Thank you.
That's fine with it, but you have also, now that you have an outfall
yes.
coming out, if the board remembers, there was a, pipe that was coming from the upper parking deck, parking lot to basically the lower parking deck going out. Do you need permits for that? Are you gonna try permit by rule with that?
I believe, I'll look into it and see if I believe there's a permit by rule that would apply to that. And it's basically what we're doing is taking a pipe that exists today in a, like a Rube Goldberg type form now. It's a pipe that's a plastic pipe that leads across the driveway. It leads down to the easterly parking area. We're proposing to pick that up. There's an inlet in the upper parking lot that's connected to, or goes into, put that pipe on the ground, and discharge it down into the brook with a flare and discharge through a pipe that would be buried under the driveway to clean it up, to make it more, acceptable as far as drainage. Otherwise, it was overflowing the wall, and so this would be piped on the ground and make it a cleaner operation.
So be clear though, these rules that are here, these Rule 50 and 51, this is something that the applicant would have to basically guarantee that this has been addressed and.
Correct. So what would happen is, any permits, let it be DEP, soil conservation, outside agencies, that would all be the applicant's responsibility to handle and address as a condition of approval. So if they're able to get all those conditions met, everything's good, they're able to construct, no problem. If it comes back that one of those, or two of those, or whatever, are not able to get, and you can't get the permit, or it's denied, or whatever, they would have to come back here and look to do something else to alleviate the issue. Yes.
Right, so under the permit by rules, we demonstrate that we do qualify for the permit. It's different criteria within each permit by rule. Borough engineer has the right to review it and agree and approve it and not do it, and not go to DEP. You can't go the extra step of sending it to do DEP for FHA applicability determination for them to concur, but the town engineer has the ability to do that himself. So, okay, let's go on to the turning movements. We do show some turning templates to show the ability. We do comply with all the lane widths, the aisle widths, et cetera, with the exception of a small portion of the exit from the upper parking lot to the north out towards the to Ringwood Avenue, where we had 22.5 feet versus the 24 feet, which is required, which is, to me, a de minimis exception. It's a...
Sorry, I'm seeing a 13-foot wide driveway.
No, I'm talking about, that's a one-way lane, there's no parking associated with that. I'm talking about the aisle exiting from the upper parking lot out to the macadam area up to the front, which is 22.5 feet versus the 24 feet required. And that's the only area that's in the parking area itself.
I know, I'm sorry.
Can you elaborate on what you asked? A little bit more so we understand?
There's
You're satisfied with the answer?
I mean, he needs a variance, we can disagree on what the extent of that is. There's a 13-foot drive aisle connecting the upper part of the site with the lower part of the site. It seems that there's a 22.5. I mean, it's kind of hard to see what's paved and what's a driveway, because there's just a huge swath of asphalt, but turning into the upper parking lot, there's a dimension showing 22.5. I do see that.
So the 13-foot leading down to the back, if we need to, I'd like to amend the application to include that 13-foot aisle for the access to the lower level, rather than widening it out for the low amount of traffic that would be expected going out of here. 13-foot, I believe, is more than adequate for the accessibility to the rear of the property to the east, and to widen that would be a lot more disturbance, I believe, would be necessary to, it's been serving like this for numerous years, and we prefer to keep it the way it is. It's paved down to till it gets towards the bottom to the stone area. So, I'll move on the, number 9, testimony used to the 2 buildings to determine the accuracy of parking calculations. We do show parking calculations on the plan for number 1 retail, which is the building to the west that fronts on Ringwood Avenue. That's requires 15 spaces. The warehouse, which is the building to the east, down on the lower side of the property, requires 2 spaces for a total of 17 spaces required, and we're providing 17 spaces. So we do provide adequate parking. The curve, number 11, as far as the curving, there's no curving now. There's no intent of putting in curving because it does overflow to the brook, and we're proposing for that to remain. Everything is all stabilized now. To concentrate it in certain areas, we put in curving. I think it would create more problems that it would solve because the sheet flows over to the brook now. That's proposed to remain. Number 12, we are at the rear stone parking area will not be expanded, but will remain in accordance with the provisions of Chapter 16. Again, I don't believe there's a need to provide any more than what is there. There's another comment regarding the striping in the stone area. We know that it's going to require more maintenance, but the applicant is prepared to maintain the striping that is shown on here to accommodate the vehicles.
To be clear, both of those would be a variance.
Yes. And I think Yes. All right, number 13, I just mentioned about the striking in the parking area, in the stone area. The applicant is aware that more, higher maintenance requirements are applicable here because of the stone, and that they're prepared to accommodate that. Number 14, regarding the open space, we do show open space of, let's see, impervious coverage of 64.5%, where 85% impervious coverage is permitted, and we do comply with building coverage of 16.8 versus 65. And the variance has been requested for the parking in the front, I'm sorry, the parking lot setback variance for the parking, and we do list that as variance as well. Parking setback to the sideline.
Wait, sorry.
I'm sorry.
Did you finish talking about, the open space requirement, which is, essentially a landscaping requirement, number 14?
Oh, I'm sorry. Just that.
I have some questions on that as well. So let me ask the question regarding whether a floodway impacts usable space when you did your calculations?
Floodway impacts the usable space, you're saying?
Yes.
I mean, that counts towards the open space?
I'm asking whether it's usable in terms of total space that can be used on this property.
It is applied, and it is used as parking area, yes, but not as other usable space. We do have other landscape area proposed, but we, as far as open space is concerned, we're just looking to see what... We do have a planting area that is proposed. It is an open area. There's a couple of trees that exist between the upper and lower parking area to the west of the lower maintenance masonry building. And we're proposing to provide more plantings in that area to increase the green, I guess, put plantings within an existing green space and to make it more green, let's say. But as far as usable space, is that your question for the floodway? I'm not sure what your question is.
Well, you're looking for a variance in terms of total space being used, is that not correct?
They require, the code requires 5% of 8,000 square feet to be planted or existing trees retained. So,
Yeah, we're proposing a 7%.
where are you?
And that again, that landscape area that I just referred to going between the upper and lower parking areas.
I don't see any, can you provide, I don't even know what you're planning there.
We do show, let me see if I have
If you could update your,
proposed plantings. I don't specify what plantings, but we would certainly comply with.
yeah, if you
the
could
pros.
update the calculations to show that it's the required 5% of 8,000 and also provide information as to what is being planted there.
Yes, yeah, so again, that space that is within, let's say, the planting area, that is what qualifies, there's what comes up with the 7%. And I will elaborate on the planting area, the plantings will be provided.
So you call out on note number 8, that you have a mixture of holly, boxwood,
Other-
and azaleas. Just when you do that, and you do your calculation, breakout, we're gonna put this many of this, that many of that. So it's an actual planting schedule.
Got it? I'll elaborate on that, yes. Okay, so number 15.
Take a question.
Yeah, I actually had a question on 6, if you don't mind going back to that for a second. In terms of what you state about the rule for 50 and 51 storage of unsecured material, isn't that referring to residential use or outside? Because I looked at the application for flood hazard application and the checklist, and it seems to me that it's referring to residential use.
Okay,
And then my second question was, when do you submit your flood hazard area application to the state of New Jersey, DEP?
when what? Sorry.
Who is going to submit?
Well, if the borough engineer, would prefers us to submit for applicability determination to DEP, we will do that. But again, your engineer has the ability to approve it if he concurs with the permits by rule that would qualify for the criteria that are permits by rule.
I could have sworn at the last meeting, we were very clear that we wanted to know a little bit, much more about what the state of New Jersey would have to say about this being in a floodway. And I also have a question as to why you're not showing anything with floodway, you're just referring to the FEMA flood zone, but most of this is actually floodway. And I think that does make a difference in terms of usage of the property.
Okay, so the floodway is within the flood hazard area, which is labeled on the FEMA map. It's, the floodway is the outside, the highest 100-year flood elevation, and the floodway actually is within the confines of the stream itself. That's the floodway. The flood hazard area is flood elevation level that it could get up to with 100-year storm.
Do you have a map showing that?
Yes.
Can we see that map?
Sure.
Yeah. Yeah, if we're gonna, show the map. Okay.
And the determination is typically submitted. So the determination form that he's talking about is typically submitted by the applicant.
Yeah, but I'm looking at the map and I'm seeing that the greatest portion of the back portion is actually floodway. It's not just flood zone.
There's another map. A changed map. Yeah, let's just see which one. Yeah, he has two. Yours is from April 12th. Yours is from... What's that date? I can't see it. November 17th. So this is the... Did I just do this? Okay. You got the latest one, you just don't have the first one. Okay.
Little survey that partially shows it. I'm gonna do a flood search here.
The reason I'm asking is that when it comes to DEP, okay, this is information that you're supposed to be able to show on the property, what portion is in the floodway for the project. Isn't that true, right?
Yes, we showed the floodway line, the limit of the AE flood zone per the FEMA panel sets. I do reference the panel that we did obtain, I just cannot put my fingers on it, I don't know where it went. But we did order a flood search for this, we did get a, I don't seem to have it here, but this partially shows it on this map. The 100-year flood elevation.
We should mark that as,
Yep.
A1 with today's date?
So it's in market.
Yeah.
No, but mark,
Gotta mark
mark.
A1 with today's date?
Yes.
But be careful, please.
Floodway up here, 100-year flood elevation, comes up here. It's coming over this way, so it comes down, I have it on my plan, if you look at my plan.
See, on the FEMA map, which I could not print very well,
Right.
okay, it clearly shows the separation between floodway and flood zone. And I'm not seeing anything that has that here.
excuse me,
Unless
before you
can-
go any further, you printed this up today? Is that what you're using?
Yeah, but it's not clear, that's the problem. And I'm looking for something clear.
Make that today's date.
D1.
Today's date. What's today's date?
6/25.
D1?
B as in board.
So,
So what I'm saying is that we should be able to see clearly where the building, how close it is to the floodway. We should be seeing how the property is impacted by floodway.
Right.
And I haven't seen anything shown other than
This 100
this showing, but this does not show floodway. It just says it's within the FEMA zone, okay?
Yes.
Zone AE, which both of these are, but one of them is separate and it is floodway, which allows for current, which is a different amount of water, as you know.
All right, so maybe this is the floodway here, the crosshatch
Yes,
area?
that's
and that-
correct.
And that was, what I was saying before, is confined to the actual stream itself. It goes down like this, so this is reverse actually, it's like this. So this comes down, and this is basically following the stream itself.
See, I'm sorry, I don't agree with that, because right here, we can click, like, from what I can see, when you look at this line right here,
Mhm.
okay? This is showing this area right here, and it does not show flood zone, it's showing floodway. And what I would like to see is something that you would have had, that would have clearly identified what you have on this property that's floodway.
Well, this is the map that we had, and this is the floodway itself. Again, it's the striped hatch area right here, and that comes down. We actually show
It's very close to the building, as you
Yes,
can
it
see.
is, which is right here. Exactly. That's it. So it does come down.
So all this parking is gonna be in a floodway, not a
Yes.
flood zone.
That's correct. That's correct, and we're aware of that, and that's what we had shown on here, so it does, if you look, it does follow that line, pretty much up here, here's the building, and here's the upper building right here, we show it right up to here, coming in nearby, so it does follow this line. So it does have everything in it that is within the floodway / flood zone. The floodway, again, is mostly, almost always confined within the 100-year flood elevation, flood hazard area, the FHA line.
I'm familiar, that's why I'm asking.
He was talking about this area right here as a floodway.
Mhm.
Flood zone, flood wall. This is the area where the parking is going to be. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
This is the flood zone.
Yep.
Flood zone. That's going to be affected by
Yeah.
floodway. That's what Frank was asking. We should have.
So we do show the most conservative,
Still, one second.
I'm sorry.
So you understand this is a floodway.
And Frank, and the concern is if we get a major flood, so to speak, with the floodway, the current will sweep things away.
That's correct.
Why this is why.
And then
That's
we're-
why it's designated.
That's why it's important to know that.
Yeah, whatever's in the
essential.
floodway,
Parking here.
assume it's gonna flood.
Yeah,
All right, so,
All this parking.
anything loose,
Floodway.
John,
Not the
anything
flood zone.
structure-wise shouldn't be there. That's the floodway. You know, what's being shown on the plan, which is surveyed and references, a FEMA flood panel map, it just barely misses a corner. Is that 100% accurate? I'm leaving that up to the engineer to testify. But it's really close to that masonry structure. But as, the board member stated, everything on the lower end, you know, those parking spaces, whatever you're putting down there, has the potential to be washed away and negatively impact the rest of the community.
That's why we voted to be.
So we did add a note on the plan to say that, number 7, there will be no storage of material outside. All materials, tools, equipment, et cetera, shall be stored in the building. Only vehicles and trailers shall be stored outside. So there's no plans for any outside storage of equipment or materials, especially in the floodway area. So, shall I proceed to the next item?
Let me just say on top of that, so if the board approves this as is, because of what we discussed here, there will be a condition of approval, that note about storing stuff in the flood area. One, it would have to be permittable, so DEP would have to be okay with doing whatever they're doing. And 2, it would be up to the compliance officer to go down there on a normal visit, take a look, see what's down there, and if stuff is being stored, they may be in line for a ticket, something to that effect. You know, it's one thing to get the approval, it's another thing to actually do the work and have it be regulated and enforced properly. I don't want to say they're going to do that or not going to do it, I'm just saying that's the state of reality. So, you know, enforcement for this case, and every case across the United States, Jersey, is a concern. That's what it is. You know, there's comments on here that they're saying they're going to do. Leave it at that.
As I understand, if it's in the resolution, it's enforceable, so it's-
Yeah.
obviously the owner and applicant has put a notice accordingly. So, moving on to item, I think we're at number 15. We have comment is about the railroad. There's a buffer that is stated under item 15, which basically the buffering would be to the railroad, which is basically elevated from where we are, and would not, at least we don't believe screening would be serve any purpose, because it's, again, the railroad, so it's elevated from us. If it were below us, I could see screening would be applicable, but this site is basically not really visible from, you can see the building up by the road, but from down to the lower end, everything else is up or down, obviously in the flood zone. So it's to provide any screening is, it wouldn't, in my opinion, would not serve much of any purpose. So, if the board feels otherwise, please let us know, but there's really no room on our property to do so either. We are proposing to remove a portion of the concrete and stone area down in the lower level, and restore it with topsoil and seed that goes on to the railroad property.
Just move your mouse. Just move your mouse in. Just so it can appear on the screen.
Oh, okay.
It's just an activity.
No, it's
In the
shown up.
mouse.
Oh, no, shut up.
There you go.
Just press the power button. Press the space bar, and you get a sound. But if there's no
Hold on.
activity, it's gonna go into sleep mode.
Right.
It'll be required to sound. So you can turn it off. Yeah, you can turn it off.
Don't worry about it. I'll put it up. Me, do nothing.
I don't know.
Is that controlled here? Don't do it.
Don't you just love technology?
When it works. It's time. Meeting where my company went down to the side of the CGK.
Oh, those cars, they'll some spots.
Internet expected it back.
Okay, we're back.
Okay, so back to item 16, regarding the loading space. There's, in our opinion, there's no need for a loading space per se. For loading, it's usually, we do show a loading zone up alongside the upper building, but the only loading that would be applicable in either one of these sites is the a FedEx truck or something. There's no tractor trailers or any other large material deliveries proposed or that exist today. So we don't believe that full loading space is required. We do, however, show a loading zone up alongside the existing building if we ever needed some. But again, it's just a FedEx truck delivery type of panel truck, so we don't feel a loading space is required or requesting variance for that. Number 17 regards the retaining wall. The structural integrity of the wall, there's some parts of the top of the wall, the lower portions of the entire wall are in pretty good shape. The upper portion, especially over where we're proposing this piping to traverse the lower parking area, is deteriorated to some degree primarily because of the makeshift piping system and the drainage that goes in that direction. So we're proposing to restore that wall to its original condition after we install the proposed drainage system to alleviate from overflowing and going across the driveway. So it'll be an improvement from what's there.
That item, if it's approved, would have to go through the building department, reviewed during the building department review, along with the pipe getting installed and the wall getting redone. So, the specific details on how that will be constructed would be handled at that time.
Right.
Very well. Okay, that's, verse 18 regards the dimensions on the trees. Basically, there's circles, say, within that planting area we previously discussed. They are just the size of the trees that are in that area, and they are proposed to remain. Number 19 regards the parking spaces. There are parallel spaces presently along Ringwood Avenue, which are proposed to be removed. We understand the problem with that, so we are eliminating those. contemplating all the parking behind the building and the upper parking lot for the lower building and the lower parking area.
Have your parking calculations been adjusted to not include those?
Yes, correct.
Okay.
All right, the parking area, number 20 is regarding the parking area at the rear of the building and from the sideline. Again, we propose some of that to be removed, and we also request a variance to, for the parking setback from the property line, 4 foot required versus no required. Number 21 regards the dimensions of the trailer storage areas to the property lines and the locations. So we did indicate the requested dimensions. Number 22, we are proposing removal of the lower portion of the that stone parking area onto the railroad property. And that's the extent of the responses to this letter.
So for item 21,
Yes.
comment 21, so on the plan it shows from the corner to your property line is 9 foot, where 4 foot's required. Do I have that right?
That's correct. The storage behind there, like to the south of the masonry building?
Yes.
Yes.
And then anything that's within the railroad right of way, you're proposing to take out,
Correct.
restore it to original condition,
Yes.
and keep everything basically on your property.
Correct. Yes. That's the extent of my testimony.
Does anyone have any other questions?
Is this property considered flood zone?
Yes. Yes, it is.
It is, right?
Yes.
Okay. So you do need flood insurance?
I would assume they have, no, I don't know the answer to the question, but the buildings are actually outside the flood zone, the flood hazard area. I believe there's a couple of different types of flood insurance. One is if your building is in the floodway, or what if it's outside.
Could you speak a little louder?
Yeah, one is if your building is within the floodway or flood hazard area,
That
and
will
one
have
is if it's
flood
outside. I
insurance?
think there's different rates. I'm not, totally familiar with it, but I believe that's the case when you have flood insurance.
Flood insurance isn't required because it's in a floodplain. Normally lenders, if there's a mortgagee on a building, normally the lenders require flood insurance for the
Okay.
structures in a flood.
Okay.
I have a question as to where the Susquehanna Railroad property ends. I'm not clear on that. I see this, this portion of concrete and stone parking area to be removed or stored with topsoil and seed.
Yes.
Can you tell me where, the line is that shows where this railroad ends?
Well, it's, basically follows that line, it's labeled as L, 23051, that goes, follows, parallels obviously the railroad itself, and it's, we've got dimensions shown to that line at various locations. That's the property line between the railroad property and the, let me show you.
Just be careful of the wires.
Yeah, I see the end of the property line. This is this
That's
line,
it,
right?
Correct, yeah, that's it there.
So all of this is part of the right of way for the railroad?
Correct.
So would you be needing a variance also for your parking spaces for the lower area? Because you're right up against that property line with no dimensions
Yeah, we are requesting variance for the parking setback from the property line, 4 foot is required, they should have none at that location. So we are requesting a variance, it's listed in the variance request.
Variance question.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody have any other questions for the testimony given? I'd like to open up to Collier to see if you'd like to provide any feedback on the testimony that was given.
Yeah, so did a good job covering the bases with the letters that we provided. If the board moves forward with this, I do have concerns with the flood hazard, the applicability, terminations. I think all that contingent upon approval. We want to see that from DEP. Typical with applications like this that are, you have the flood line on your property. And the thing, if it comes back and they say, you cannot use this as a permit by rule, or you cannot put this outfall in, well then, you're gonna have to come back, redesign whatever you need to redesign to make it work in the guidelines of DEP. No construction or improvements could be done until those permits are in place. So that takes some time. I would recommend, if you haven't done, submit it, if they approve this. Those are gonna be the biggest things here. The other thing is going to be making sure that that back parking lot is kept tidy and the parking spaces are continuously lined. That's what it is. And the big thing we talked about at the last meeting, it's striped for 4 parking spaces back there. That means 4 cars back there. It doesn't mean 4 cars, 3 trucks, and a trailer. It's 4 cars. So that's a concern with it, because it was discussed that I'll just put this other stuff back there. So it's not a lot of space, but it sounds like there's a lot of equipment.
Right. Because even driving by, when you drive by there at night, you'll see that there's vehicles lined up going down the driveway. I've seen it, so I just was wondering, that's the 4 spots, and 4 spots only, not up and down the driveway.
It's 4 parking spots.
What are the sizes? 9 by 18 are the parking stalls?
Yes.
Is that correct?
Those are my concerns.
I would just echo the importance of, if the board moves forward with this, prioritizing that lower parking lot, keeping it tidy, keeping everything attractive, because Plumpton Lakes also has the new senior housing going up across the street, and, we're hopeful that there will be. And we want to keep that, keep the views nice.
One question, is this considered anything to do with a riparian zone?
If there were new construction, or there would be no construction permitted within, I believe it would be a 50-foot riparian zone, so if there were any construction proposed, they would have to respect the 50-foot riparian zone from the top of the bank of the street. But we're not proposing any construction on this system.
I know that the DEP has, concerns at any time we're near water with plants and other things with the environment. I mean, has any of that been studied by you, or?
Well, yes, it's the DEP regulations that I'm familiar with, and there's a riparian zone, which again, it depends on the classification of the stream, and this stream would be, I believe, considered, let's say, ordinary. We have a 50-foot riparian zone. They have other streams that have more, if they are considered in a threatened endangered species zone, for instance, or if there's a trout production, there would be possibly a greater riparian zone requirement, but there's no disturbance within 25 foot of the top bank. And again, the zone, the riparian zone is taken from the top of bank up the stream. Again, no construction is proposed here, so none of those would apply in this instance.
So, and that's kind of my question is, have we determined whether or not the stream and the nearby wetlands area, if there's any requirements to be so far away from without any disturbance?
Yes, if there are any construction proposed, we would, there wouldn't be any new construction proposed within the zone, within the floodway, or within 50 feet of, again, there's no construction being proposed, so it would not be applicable in this instance.
Isn't the guidelines in reference to disturbance? I mean, sometimes it's plants and how you would impact the plants that are in that zone.
Yes, and if it's previously disturbed, that's allowed to remain. So we have previous disturbance, which within this riparian zone language, and that is proposed to remain. So if it's previous disturbance that existed before these regulations, with certainly that that's permitted to remain and be maintained in its current condition.
Okay, and so what you're saying is that right now we don't know that, and that's something you're going to find out during your DEP application?
Well, yeah, I guess that when we make the applicability determination to DEP for the flood hazard area, permit by rule, that would be part and parcel of what they will look at, and yes, and I've done many of these, and if it's previously disturbed, there's really nothing more that, you can't do anything more than what's there, but you can maintain what's there. That's the regulations.
I've dealt with, streams that were considered trout streams or those type, and I'm familiar with that. So my question is, did you investigate any of that at this time?
Well, yes, as part of our due diligence, we did go through and again, establish the flood zone, establish the floodway, did a flood search. We checked the applicability or the classification of the stream, which would be an ordinary classification. It's not an exceptional classification of stream. So none of those exceptional buffers would apply here.
What is the required buffer?
50 foot from the top of bank, if there are any construction proposed. Anything that exists again today that is pre-disturbed can remain as is, can be maintained.
I do have a question regarding the retaining wall. The retaining wall, we're saying that was put up and we're not sure of the integrity of it, and the structure of it.
What I was saying was based on my visual, I obviously was not familiar with the original construction. This is pretty old. But the wall looks like it's in good condition, for the most part, right behind the lower building and alongside the drive that leads to the lower area. There's a portion again where that, because it's primarily a result of the drainage that goes down in that area, that is eroded and done some deterioration of the top of that wall. That's what we're proposing to repair in conjunction with the drain installation to go down into the driveway. And that would again be just maintenance of what basically pre-exists and improving what's there.
So the 50 foot.
Can I ask when the last time you looked at that retaining wall in the driveway area?
A few months ago, 3 or 4 months ago.
So I was just down there the other day, and that retaining wall looks like you hit that with one of those plows, and that thing's going down. The whole thing is tilting right now, and it's also buckling away. I didn't bring photos, but it's not that hard to see that. I'm talking about, I thought that's what this restore wall to original condition was all part of that. But it's certainly not in good condition now.
Well, again, I'm not a structural engineer, but it might be, maybe you can make it conditionally cool that the structural engineer look and see if there's anything that needs to be done to restore the wall to it's an old, it looks like an old block wall, like a cement block or cinder block wall. Whether it's reinforcing in it, I don't know. There is some areas where I see it load some, but it looks like it's been like that for a while, but I can't talk to the actual integrity. I don't know what's put behind it, if there's any, I doubt it's any geogrid or reinforcing behind it, if there's stone put behind it. I don't know the integrity of the wall, but I know the portion that we're just discussing needs some work done on it. So perhaps the rest of it should be looked at by a structural engineer as well.
Okay,
Yeah, I can't show this, but it doesn't take much to see visually that that wall is in bad shape that's going down the driveway, so.
Well, it might need some reinforcing and work done on it, and I'm not a structural engineer, and perhaps it should be.
I'm sure it had a lot to do with the water, but that's
Yes.
speculation.
Agreed.
Okay.
Good. Anyone else? Right. Okay, I'd like to open it up to the public for anyone that has questions regarding the testimony and only the testimony that was given. Anyone from the public?
Mike Sarah, 41 West Lennox. Happen to live right next to it. I'm not against the project, I just have some concerns. One of them, is it a trout stream or not?
I believe it is not.
It's not, okay. I mean, we should verify that.
I will, yes.
Yeah. And the second thing would be, you obviously, if you're gonna park cars back there, would have to move them during a flood event. I mean, that's an obvious thing.
Yes.
We can't have a car getting caught in the stream, and we were just talking about the flow, and getting sucked down the river, and blocking an entrance, which now floods all the neighborhood down there.
Yes.
So that's a big concern. My question is, how would you be prepared for that and take care of that? You know, you never know when you're gonna flood. I mean, unless you're there watching it, you wouldn't know. So how would you move the cars? Where would you put them, or any of that?
I'm not familiar with the operation of the facility, what they do there, but I would, it might make sense to make a condition of the pool that this, it be put on notice that if a big storm was underway, that they remove the vehicles from the site, from the floodway.
I would hope you guys would think about a condition as part of something, because we can't have reaction because the water's starting to rise, oh, we didn't get those cars out of there in time. You know, I see that all the time in the other parts of town. People wait till the last minute and then the car's floating down the river, right? Here, it's a little different story, because it'll hit one of the bridges, it'll back up all the water that's coming down and cause a major flood to that whole neighborhood. So it has to be looked at or addressed, or somebody could speak about it.
Does this stream lead into the Wanacue River?
Yes.
I believe it does, yes.
Well, the Wanacue River is a trout-stocked river, and this is literally just a few hundred feet from it.
Okay.
So I think that qualifies as something that's leading, but I'm not an expert on that. But I mean, it seems to me that this is probably something that is not just an ordinary stream. And so I question that.
I will have my environmental consultant provide a report to that effect and submit it to the board.
It's one of the things that we do in Pumpkin Lakes is we like to fish in the Wanacue River.
Yes, please come forward.
Karen,
Oh, no, please come forward.
I just wanted to know, what are you building?
Nothing.
Nothing. But what are you, I don't know what you,
We're proposing to, basically we're looking to get a certificate of occupancy for the person that is occupying the lower building. He's intending to the building and decide to keep his business going there. Basically, it's only while here.
Park vehicles, limited number of vehicles, storage.
He's got a business, a construction business where some materials, everything's gonna be stored from here on inside the building, materials, but no construction with the exception of restoration of the wall is determined by.
add more cars onto that area?
No, just keep what's there, continue with what has been going forward.
It's,
This is on Greenwood Avenue,
Yes.
the embroidery place.
the application, no physical changes to the property other than proposed striping. The application is to permit outdoor storage parking overnight of 6 vehicles, 3 trailers, not tractor trailers.
Okay, I have another question, maybe it's stupid, but, you're talking about this floodplain from floodway, if it affects that, does it affect our neighborhood or on Montclair Avenue? We're not in the floodway or flood zone now, but if you're talking about it here, will it eventually affect us in that neighborhood?
I don't think so. It's going a different direction, but I'm not an expert in that, so.
I wouldn't think so.
Thank you.
Anyone else from the public would like to ask the applicant for about his testimony? I see none, so I will close the public session. Bear with me 1 second.
There's a lot of things here that need to be addressed, so we're gonna present it as an exception. How are we gonna delineate all this information? So, make a proposal.
I think it would probably be, typically, move in the positive and then see if it gets to the positive. They need a use variance. Right.
Multiple use variances.
They need a use variance plus a lot of bulk variances.
Right.
So it would be, if you want, I could, if they're ready, I would.
Is there anybody else on the board that has any more questions? Statements? Is there anything in closing that you would like to?
I'll make some remarks if the board is ready for that. You have to look at this application in a practical manner. What we're asking to do has been going on for years here. And this application will actually clean it up and regulate it. So if it gets out of hand or it doesn't follow the conditions that the board puts on it, the engineer brought up some points, the planner, as well as the members of the board. If the applicant doesn't follow those conditions, he's subject to summonses, penalties, fines, continuing violations, that type of thing, which really you don't have the benefit of being able to impose now because the conditions that the applicant is going to agree upon really aren't in your ordinance. This has been going on. And in addressing FEMA, this structure and structures that are located there pre-existed FEMA. FEMA was enacted in 1973. This wasn't built after FEMA was enacted and encroached upon FEMA and the regulations of FEMA. FEMA was dropped on this. So these various nonconformities, we're going to clean up to the best of our ability. There's nothing that's, in any of the records, any ordinances that we have to do this, this, or this. This went on for years. He was summoned. That's why we're here, and we want to address it. So we're going to make it better. Can we make this perfect? Absolutely not. But it's going to be a lot better than it is. And we're limiting the number of vehicles to 6 overnight and 3 trailers. All the conditions that the engineer and the planner wanted to impose are reasonable and acceptable. And we have to go to DEP and get their blessing. We're willing to do that. And some of the conditions that the board members raised are reasonable. You're looking out for the borough, you're looking out for the surrounding property owners. And they're well placed. And without this application, we wouldn't be here. It cleans up really what you might call chaos there. And we're willing to participate. We're willing to follow these reasonable recommendations. We're willing to comply with FEMA. We've had a planner address the negative and positive criteria, the basis for granting the use variance was Gregory. And again, we're calling it a use variance, but this is a really pre-existing non-conforming condition. FEMA perhaps exacerbated the variances that are necessary, but we're gonna make it as good as we can. And if the DEP said, you can't do it this way, we won't do it. We'll come back, we'll follow the recommendations, and we'll get it done so it works. So all the recommendations and the conditions I've heard tonight are reasonable. The applicant would be willing to abide by them. And I ask for a positive vote subject to these conditions.
Andrew? If someone wanted to entertain, it would be a motion to approve the use variance for landscaping business and outdoor storage where it's not permitted, along with the bulk variances of a 22.5-foot drive aisle, 24 required, no parking lot screening, and a variance for parking setback from the property line, 4 foot where none is required. It would include all the conditions, compliance with review letters, all the conditions that were placed on the record today, and most importantly, confirmation that they get permits and approval from the DEP as set forth. So this would be a motion to grant the use variance and this application. And that would require, it takes 7 votes, it will require 5 affirmative votes in favor of that.
But it wouldn't include anything that the mayor spoke on in terms of a plan in case we have a flash flood there with 4 cars.
One of the things
Running
they
down the
had,
river.
one of the conditions they agreed to was a plan or some mechanism that they would move all the cars in a flood event, and we would,
We'd have an emergency
we would talk.
evacuation plan.
How to word that in the condition, that would be a condition of approval.
And these are legitimate concerns. I want to bring out one thing. This has been operated there for years. No cars have been lost. That doesn't mean to say we could have a bad storm and it could happen, but an emergency evacuation plan, I think, is a great idea. And the resolution of approval to the board granted could certainly be subject to that.
I have a question about how you find it positive for someone that's been operating there without any permission, that's positive for us not to approve this.
I didn't say it's positive. What I'm saying this does is put regulations and conditions on things that haven't existed. Haven't existed, period. And it's because this whole operation, this site existed before FEMA did. I mean, before 1973, it didn't matter. If you look at, how FEMA just changed the world, take Long Beach Island. Up until 1973, in 60, I think it was 62 or 60, they had a terrible hurricane. The ocean came over to the bay. You couldn't sell houses because banks wouldn't grant mortgages. Once FEMA was enacted, you had flood insurance. So there's a lot of positive, and this existed. FEMA was imposed upon it, and just things continued. It's not as if someone really purposely violated this. There were businesses operating continuously, maybe not his landscaping business, but look at the age of this building. These businesses just continued and continued and continued. If the board were to pass this resolution tonight, you would be able to oppose these conditions that didn't exist before. It would really clean up the area and bring some semblance of water to the site, really would.
Can I make a motion to disapprove?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay. So I'd like to make a motion to
Hold on
disapprove.
a second. No, I think the motion should be to approve, because it doesn't talk about what you need in the negative. You need the positive, you need 5 affirmative votes for the variance. It's cleaner to have a motion to approve to it.
Because then you can
The trucks and trailers that he's talking about, there's 6 of them. You're not parking them up and down on that. Is that the variant?
No, those are spaces that are
Four
designated.
spaces down below, that's it.
I'd just like to throw out some extra concerns. I mean, as far as the vehicles, I mean, we're not having anything with restricting the size of the vehicles. We have we have numerous plows, and these plows and these trucks that are coming in and out of this egress, I find that to be pretty dangerous, to be with that plow out there and for traffic coming down Ringwood Ave. I see a lot of different a lot of problems here. As far as the past, when it was a restaurant, all these many, many years going back, nothing like these kind of vehicles were ever being parked there. There's nowhere near the kind of stress that we're talking about here.
We're limiting the number of vehicles. They were never limited in the past. We're limiting it to 6 vehicles.
I don't think
You want to
this
put a
ever
size
been-
limitation on it? Let's put a reasonable size limitation.
Okay.
Appreciate that. Okay. Can someone on the board please make a motion?
I'll make a motion, we approve the application with all the contingencies that Attorney Brewer
I'll second it.
Roll call.
Mr. Hunt,
No.
Mr. Abate,
No.
Ms. Curran,
Yes,
Mr. Koss,
Yes.
Mr. Rostock,
Yes.
Mr. Rowan,
Yes.
Mr. Luciani,
Yes.
and we need one more, right?
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. And, Mr. Brewer, if you want to get a draft of the resolution to me at your convenience, and we can work on a condition.
Do we need one?
Ready for 5, right? You good?
Can I have that exhibit A?
I'm sorry.
The exhibit A that you had presented tonight, A1?
All right, I'm going to request a 5-minute recess. 5 minutes. Application BOA 24-03, Montclair Avenue.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. For the record, Bruce Whitaker from the firm McDonald Whitaker, representing the applicant, 430 Montclair Avenue, LLC. The applicant is the owner of 430 Montclair Avenue, shown on your tax map as block 1800, lot number 13. This property is in the R-5 residential zone. This property has been the subject of an application before this board and back in 2016. From my knowledge, for many years back, it was always referred to as the old PSE&G site. The board in 2016 approved conversion of this property out from the PSE&G building lot, construction field that it was, and permitted 2 buildings to exist that was there and to permit a 3rd building to be constructed. We are not requesting any type of construction or modifications to the site. You have basically 2 principal buildings on the site, and what the applicant is proposing is a minor subdivision for purposes of creating a lot line between the 2 buildings. Now, your residential zone is very clear. The residential zone says 1 principal building on a lot. Here we have 2 principal buildings basically on 1 lot. So what we're requesting is to permit the establishment of a lot line under the municipal land use law. A property owner cannot do that unilaterally, but obviously has to have a land use approval for that from either the land use board, a planning board, or a zoning board. Now, because this is non-conforming, anytime you modify a non-conforming use like this, it falls within the lap of the zoning board of adjustment because it falls back to a D variance. It's a technical one, I would suggest. We have a situation where our coverage on this lot right now is beyond what the zone permits. So obviously, if we divide the lot up, then that coverage becomes even greater. So that's a technical variance at this point, because your R-5 zone permits a maximum of 20% for lot coverage, building coverage, I should say. And we're going to take that coverage, which was originally approved at 35.9%. It's not changing, but because there's now 2 lots, when we do simple division, we're at 43.53% and 29.15%.
Could you repeat those again, please? 42?
43.53% and 29.15%. The other thing that occurs when you have 2 buildings like this, and you establish a lot line between them in this instance, we're going to have a variance request. It's a C variance, not a D variance per se, because we're going to have a substandard size lot line, and our engineer will explain that to you. What's important to note here is that we're seeking this variance because we believe that the lot is particularly suited under your D variance criteria to have a lot line. It takes away a non-conformity of 2 principal buildings on 1 structure, and it creates now 1 principal building on each lot. And you would say, well, why would an applicant go to the trouble to do something like that? And there's many different reasons. From a very business-like standpoint, tax assessors are like this too, but from a business standpoint, it allows a lot more flexibility with financing. It allows a lot more flexibility with the owner being able to establish ownership with family-owned business, to establish how these two buildings could be conveyed or left to various members of the family with some estate work in the future. So that's one of the reasons that something like this is looked upon, and sometimes with single lots like this, it's an easier finance situation than when you're trying to finance something that is non-conforming. The buildings themselves will not be changed as far as any type of expansion. Nothing would be different. I would submit to you, if I drove down Montclair Avenue today, and if I drove down Montclair Avenue 3 months from now, if you approve this, you would not know the difference, because the lot line is not going to establish anything that you're going to see. No fence going up or anything like that. There's an ingress and egress from Montclair Avenue. We will have a cross easement that allows the same access in and out that occurs right now. And happily, as you'll hear from our engineer, each of these lots have the ability to function on their own. And what do I mean by that? The parking that is attributable to each of these lots with the lot line established, the parking is sufficient for each of the buildings and the uses that are contained within those buildings. With that said, what we're seeking, obviously, then, as per your engineer's report, and why the jurisdiction is here, we're seeking a use variance to permit 2 non-conforming lots where one exists now in this residential zone. Your findings of fact in your 2016 resolution, I think, really says it all. Back then, you looked at this and you saw what could be done, the potential. Mr. Turka is the principal of the company, testified and told you what he was going to do. And I believe if you drive by now, you can see that it's much, much better. I was there in the past, much, much better than was there before. You had a finding of fact that says the zoning board determined that the benefits of granting this variance would outweigh any detriments. The board determined that the granting of the variance would not substantially impair the intent and purpose of the master plan or zoning ordinance. And the board further determined that the granting of the variance would be neither detrimental to the neighborhood nor to the public good, and also determined that the proposed improvement would not cause substantial disturbance to neighboring properties nor negatively impact the aesthetics of the area. I would submit to you those same findings of fact would work tonight with the establishment of a lot line between the 2 lots. That's an overview of the application. I have our engineer here tonight to testify as to the technical aspects.
With the lot line, would you then be able to take one of those buildings down and build something else on it?
Not without permission from a board. So we could not do anything. If I came back and said I wanted to build something else there, I'd have to come to a board to get that approval. And if I took a building down, technically, I've lost the non-conformity I have now with a commercial building in a residential zone.
Okay,
And that's state law.
okay.
Any questions with me? Or engineer?
I have one. Which lot would have the contaminated water residue from JCP&L? Where is,
We're going to have an engineer testify as to where the wells are and go through that.
okay.
Big question, is splitting the lot, now would this allow for like other duplexes to split their lots into multiple places? Well, is that what we're doing, we're taking a lot and we're splitting it into 2?
No, I mean, a duplex split would be very, very different.
Well, not, it's just a basic example, like just allowing other to split their land.
Well, every property owner has the right to make a request for a subdivision of their property.
Yes, but we set precedent.
No, I would respectfully say you don't.
It has to be a certain size.
Has to be a
Okay,
certain.
yes, it has to always be a certain size.
Copy.
Okay. These 2 lots are oversized for your residential zone. It's just that the buildings that are on them create the building coverage issue.
Understood.
Any other questions?
My only question is, why did they choose 4 feet and not a little bit further away from the other the one-story commercial utility
Yeah,
storage building.
I'll have our engineer testify to that, but
Thank you.
overview of it is that we've got each of the parking setups proper for each of the lots. And there's a cross easement there, so I know the fire department in their report was concerned about that setback, but everything's gonna remain the same, and the fire department would arrive there for an emergency, they're not gonna see a lot line. Each one.
Please state your name, spell your last.
Tibor Latintich, spelled T-I-B-O-R, last name L-A-T-I-N-C-S-I-C-S.
Do you swear or affirm the testimony you'll give this evening before this board will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes. Principal engineer with the firm of Conklin Associates, 29 Church Street, Ramsey, New Jersey. PE license number 32444, special planner license number 3736. Those licenses are up to date.
Mr. Latentious has been previously qualified as an expert witness before this board on this application, as others I've been with him in the past years, as both a civil engineer and planner. I would ask that he be so qualified this evening. Thank you. Mr. Latentious, you've been engaged for the purposes of creating this subdivision plat that's before the board that we will mark as A1, is that correct?
Yes, the plan is titled Minor Subdivision, Lot 13, Block 1800 for Montclair Avenue, LLC. It is dated 2/22/24, last revised 4/1/24, as Exhibit A1. I've taken the liberty to prepare Exhibit A2, which is an exact blow-up of the minor subdivision so we don't see it. And there's also some photographs affixed to Exhibit A2.
And Mr. Latentious, just explain very briefly what is being proposed as far as the establishment of a lot line to create two lots and the purpose in placing the lot line as shown.
The subject property is a 67,000 square foot lot, significantly oversized for the R5 zone, which requires 7,500 square foot lots for a single family use. It is clear that this is not a single family use, but what is proposed is to subdivide it into, in round numbers, a 32,000 square foot lot on the southern portion of the property and a 35,000 square foot lot about the old PSC&G building or the Quackenbush Auto building as was formerly used. The northern building currently is occupied by Turco Golf. The lot line is proposed 4 feet off the new steel frame building, which has 6 overhead garage doors. Answering the question by the board member as to why it was placed 4 foot. As a practical matter, this area between the two buildings is used entirely by Turco Golf. And the picture I took on, it's dated January 6th. You can see that's basically
That one goes about a month.
A3.
A3 photograph I took on January 6th. And it shows quite clearly that area in between the two buildings is utilized by Turco Golf Services. In terms of parking, as Mr. Whittick indicated, each proposed lot would function there will be sufficient parking on each lot. The code requirement for the steel frame building is 1 per 500. That's a warehouse contract for auto use. 38.5 parking stalls under your code would be required for lot 13.01, the U7 lot. There are 40 parking stalls on that property. 24 along the front of the building and another 26 along the curb line. That parking at the front of the property is totally screened by a chain link fence and landscaping along the property. The northern lot, which is occupied by Turco Golf, approximately 15 to 20 employees. They are often off-site. They come to the site to pick up trucks and go off to maintenance tasks. There are 24 parking stalls existing on proposed lot 13.02 to service the existing building. As indicated, there is access to both proposed lots. There would be cross easements proposed as a practical matter. Today and in the future, there's a flow of traffic throughout the site, two curb cuts to Montclair Avenue. There is no change in the buildings. There is no change in the impervious surface. Response to the question concerning the extent of the groundwater, tainted groundwater. There's monitoring wells on both properties, the cluster at the northern portion of the northern lot 13.02, and there's additional monitoring wells on 13.01. So I think the answer is that the tainted groundwater condition is throughout the site. I cannot give expert testimony on that, but as a practical matter, I believe that is the situation. That is the reason for the monitoring wells.
And by virtue of this subdivision, I can stipulate nothing changes as far as the monitoring wells, locations, or the requirements that still exist as ongoing requirements as it pertains to the monitoring wells with the DEP.
There are some historic, we'll call it, or existing non-conformities. For example, the former PSE&G Quackenbush building is 10 to 8 inches off the rear property line. That condition will continue. The southern building is 2.7 feet off the property line, backs up to the Susquehanna Western Railroad right away. That condition will continue. The new variances which are indicated in the zoning schedule is yes, a 4-foot side yard is proposed to the southern building with the lot line which I've highlighted on Exhibit A2, which I am tracing. And again, the reason is just very practical. This area is used by Turco Golf with the northern building. And because we are splitting the lot in half, as Mr. Whitaker stated, the building coverage, while currently, if you measure it against the gross lot, is 20.53. When you split the lot in half, the building coverages go up to 45.53 and 29.15%, respectively. Again, there's no physical changes to the property. It's just an matter of establishing a lot line for the reasons Mr. Whitaker stated.
And on the basis of establishing this lot line and creating two tax lots, if you will, at this point, as I stated, just for you to confirm, if you're on Montclair Avenue today or 3 months from now, and this were approved and the subdivision perfected, would you know the difference?
There will be no visual difference whatsoever.
And the landscaping and all the improvements that Mr. Turco put in as a condition of approval has been maintained there, the upgrades that are there, none of that changes by virtue of this proposal, is that correct?
No change.
Traffic circulation will basically remain the same.
Yes.
And the cross easements will permit it will be in perpetuity, meaning if there's any future owner that owns one of these lots, the traffic circulation, ingress and egress would still remain the same. Is that correct?
Correct.
You've had the benefit of reviewing the Collars Engineering's report of April 22nd, 2024?
Yes.
There's a series of requests in there for modifications to the plan, making some things more legible and providing some additional information. Can all of that be done?
Yes.
And you're confirming that the side yard setback distance for lot 13.01 from adjacent lot 18 has not been provided as a string dimension. Can that be done?
Yes.
Now, from a planning perspective, and putting your planner's hat on for a moment, you were the planner and engineer for the original application, is that correct?
Correct.
You've had benefit of the April 26, 2016 resolution that adopted by this board?
Yes.
I had recited the basis and foundation for the decision made by the board in 2016, that the proposal for what the applicant did and was granted then, that the benefits far outweighed any detriments, and the granting of the variances would not impair the intent and purpose of the master plan and zoning ordinance. You're familiar with that finding of fact?
Yes.
Would it be your professional opinion as a planner that that basis and foundation would apply to what we're proposing this evening?
Yes, that condition remains.
Thank you. That's all I have at this time, Mr. Chairman.
Other questions, anyone on the board have any questions?
I do.
Testimony?
Is there going to be a fence along that first building?
No interior fence is proposed. There is property frontage is
On the
fenced.
perimeter, but I'm
No.
saying at the end of the building on 13,
There, no, to accommodate traffic circulation.
that's going to be open.
It's going to remain open.
Okay.
As far as the fire department's concerned about that 4-foot, you're saying that there's something showing that there would be an easement or right-of-way through the building to the right? So I'm not seeing anything, or am I missing it?
It's going to remain as it is today. This is actually looking right. Photograph on exhibit A2 is looking right down travel lane, parking on either side. This is the steel frame building on the southern lot. So there is no,
So I guess my question is there anything preventing you from putting, or somebody in the future putting up a fence here? That's my question. What's preventing?
The cross easement.
The cross easement agreement is not going to allow it.
I'm sorry?
The cross easement agreement would not allow
Well, that's what I'm asking about, the cross
it. We can
easement.
stipulate to that.
That's not showing on any of this.
No, that would be
That's
part,
between your partners or
no,
whatever.
that would be part of they're gonna have to file subdivision deed. There's gonna have to be an easement in there, which, your engineer's gonna review, I'm gonna review to make sure that that is an easement so they can, so cars and people using both properties can use it the same way they are now, and that will be forever.
Okay.
And that's in perpetuity. So as I started my opening, I say again, the only way that there is a demarcation is a line on a piece of paper, not anything that would be shown on the site itself.
And in the future, if someone would put up a fence, they would be going against the cross-access easement, which is then tied to your deed. So the party, would be a violation, go down, tell them to take the fence out, because you have a cross-access easement.
And anybody purchasing the property, they're going to have a deed in its chain of title that tells them they can't do that.
Okay.
And if they wanted to do that, they'd have to come back to this board.
Correct.
To see about getting it.
But we're not seeing anything about the cross easement. That's something that is going to be handled then.
In the subdivision.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep. And I'm not advocating, but that's the manner in which it would be done, yes.
Anyone else?
I see on the map that there are 6 wells. Are those 6 wells all the, is it JCP&L?
Those are binary walls.
How often do they inspect that? I read in the paperwork that there has been no change in terms of a plume or anything like that. But how often do they monitor the wells?
I do not.
I'm not familiar with that, other than I do know, because I did the closing of the work then, that's the documentation that's on record, that it's under the DEP jurisdiction, and they are enforcing everything that's being done. So there's inspections and things done periodically.
Right, and for the record, it's PSE&G, not GCP now.
Okay.
Right. Anyone else have any questions for testimony? No one? I'd like to open it up for the public to come forward and ask any questions of the applicant on the testimony that was given. If you'd like to, please step forward.
Randy, 443 Lakota. I live right directly across the street. Been there since 1995. Speaking of the wells, there are wells.
If testimony, that's where you, please state your name, spell your last.
Randy Hinton, Hinton.
You swear or affirm the testimony you'll give this evening before this board will be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Of course I do. I've been in the house since 1995, when the lot was pretty much abandoned. Quackenbush was there, he was really the only person renting there at the time. Mr. Turco bought the property. We've had conversations. He's much improved the property, he's landscaped the property. Most of the residents on the block are happy that he's here and what he's done to the property. He constantly maintains across the street, it's planted. We're real happy. A lot of his employees, sometimes we're parking on both sides. If I ever needed a car moved, I went over there, all his employees, always nice to deal with, they have the cars moved. Most all of his employees park on that one side, and the residents park on the other side of the cars. So, what he's proposing is subdividing the property, I don't see a problem with it at all. Like I said about the wells, PSEG drill, there are wells across the street on our side also, so. Like he said, the DEP probably monitors that, has nothing to do with it. So I see no problem with you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, is there anyone else from the public that'd like to step forward? And I see no one, so I will close the public section. Can I please get a motion?
Can I just give a?
Oh, I am sorry, yes, please.
I don't know, I just wanted to, make sure the board is understanding why, the D variance is involved here. You are considering a D variance and all the positive and negative criteria. The reason for that is because when it was, last approved, they received D1 and D2 variances, for use. And, as was pointed out, the board found that the site was particularly well-suited. According to case law, when the board made that original, when the board originally contemplated that, they were making that decision under a set of circumstances. And among those circumstances was that it was a 60,000 something square foot lot, right? And if that hadn't been the case, would the board have made the same decision? Would you have said that this use is appropriate if the lot had, for example, been smaller? And so when we have the subdivision before us tonight, and it is changing the circumstances around the original approval, the board is essentially given a chance to revisit that decision and say, okay, if it was two smaller lots instead of one big lot, would we still have found the parcel to be especially well suited for this use variance and all of the other questions that go around with it? So that's why you're hearing this tonight and contemplating another use variance, because those circumstances have changed and the courts say you get to reconsider what happened the first time around. And if they have changed to such an extent that you no longer think it would be appropriate, then they would still maintain what they have today. But it's kind of a very planning technical type of variance that you have before you tonight, but I wanted to try to make sure you understood why it was happening.
I appreciate that. Okay. Can I get that motion?
I'll make a motion that we approve the variance with the easement as Attorney Brewer so eloquently will put in writing.
A second.
And any other contingencies that our attorney will see fit to put in.
I second.
Roll call, please.
Only 7 votes.
Mr. Hunt?
Yes.
Mr. Abate?
Yes.
Ms. Curran? Mr. Koss,
Yes.
Ms. Bernstock?
Yes.
Mr. Rowan?
Yes.
Mr. Luciani?
Yes.
Thank you very much. Have a good evening.
What's the number on
You can get your become one. So that's why he.
You're gonna. Gotcha.
So now you
Did I get the A1 and the
You need the A1,
Yes.
next one.
Keyboard?
Put the other house in my. Because you could end up having one big lot, two houses. New Jersey never thought of that. The goal was.
Can I get those PDFs too, like exhibit reports I tell him?
To use.
Can you send these two PDFs? Can I email you? I'll email you.
This is, this is,
Thank you. This way you can have it on the file.
We're just chatting.
I need to get a motion to, adjourn.
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Who motion first, please?
Oh, yeah.
Mary.
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 Thank you.
I said.
And I second.
Some study stuff, let's go.
You ain't going back there. Take the vote on the first property now. I thought about, I would really appreciate it, if we have questions, you please.
I mean, they may have just.
But I thought to myself that if we allow them to go ahead and do what they have to do,